6,852 islands. Volcanoes crowned with snow. This is a nation built on contradictions. A place where the future and the ancient past walk side by side. Where hyper-modern cities rise beside sacred forests older than empires. Temples held together by nothing but wood and gravity, no nails, no screws, standing after 1,000 earthquake seasons. Most countries choose between tradition and progress. Japan refused. Even chaos here feels organized. And perhaps nowhere else on Earth has mastered the art of balance quite like Japan. Because in Japan, opposites do not destroy each other, they merge. Over the next 1 hour, we will travel from neon megacities to forgotten mountain villages, from sacred shrines to robotic futures, from samurai castles to digital dreamscapes. Welcome to the wonders of Japan. Shibuya Crossing, the busiest intersection on Earth. Up to 3,000 people cross at a single light change, and no two paths collide. The scramble runs in every direction at once, a choreography that has no choreographer, only rhythm. The intersection was not designed, it evolved. Above the crossing, screens the size of buildings cycle through advertisements in colors visible from the far side of the square. At the edge of the crossing, a small bronze statue of a dog, Hachiko, who waited 9 years at this station for a master who never came home. The professor, Ueno Hidesaburo, died of a cerebral hemorrhage at work in 1925. Hachiko returned to the station every evening for nearly a decade. The statue was erected while the dog was still alive. He appeared at its unveiling in 1934, then continued waiting at the station for another year until his own death. The crowds flow past him every few minutes like a tide that never stops. At night, the intersection becomes a canyon of light, the buildings leaning inward, the neon reflecting off wet pavement after rain. From the Starbucks on the second floor overlooking the crossing, you can watch the human river flood and drain. Every 90 seconds, forever. Senso-ji, Tokyo's oldest temple, founded in the year 628 after 2 fishermen pulled a golden statue of Kannon from the Sumida River. The Kamamaramon Gate marks the entrance, a massive red and black structure crowned by a 700-kilogram lantern bearing the word Thunder. Beyond it, Nakamise-dori stretches 200 meters, a lane of vendors selling everything from rice crackers to hand-painted fans, unchanged in purpose for centuries. The temple itself rises at the far end, 5 stories of vermilion and white, incense smoke curling from a giant bronze burner in the courtyard. Visitors waft the smoke toward whatever part of them needs healing. At dusk, the lanterns along the approach light one by one, the crowd thins, and the temple's red walls deepen against a darkening sky. The Sumida River is 3 minutes away on foot. On summer evenings, fireworks reflect in its surface, while Senso-ji stands behind, silent, ancient, still watching the city it was born before. Meiji Shrine. A Shinto sanctuary dedicated to Emperor Meiji and Empress Shokin, set inside a forest of 120,000 trees, every one donated from across Japan. The entrance torii gate, 40 feet tall, is made from a single cypress trunk over 1,500 years old. Walking the gravel path from the gate to the main hall takes 10 minutes, and with every step, the sound of Harajuku fades until there is nothing but the crunch of stone underfoot and birdsong overhead. The trees are so dense that the temperature drops. The shrine buildings are austere, copper roofs, unpainted cypress, clean lines. Sake barrels line one wall of the approach, stacked in neat pyramids, each one wrapped in straw and marked with the name of its brewer. Beyond the shrine, Yoyogi Park opens wide, one of the few expanses of flat green in central Tokyo, where on weekends, rockabillys dance in leather jackets under cherry trees and families spread picnics on the grass. It is a place where the silence of the forest and the noise of the city exist within the same boundary, separated by nothing but a wall of leaves. Shinjuku Gyoen. 58 hectares of garden in the center of the world's most populous city, 3 distinct landscapes within one wall. The Japanese garden, winding paths around a central lake, maples pruned into cloud shapes. The French garden, sycamores in rigid rows, roses in symmetrical beds. The English garden, sweeping lawns beneath open sky. But it is the cherry blossoms that make this place extraordinary in spring. Over 1,000 trees, 40 varieties blooming in sequence from late March through mid-April. By mid-April, the petals drift across the pond in pale clouds, catching in the branches of maples that will not bloom for months. Tokyo Skytree. 634 meters of steel lattice, the tallest structure in Japan and the tallest tower in the world. At 350 meters, the first observation deck offers a view that stretches to Mount Fuji on clear winter mornings. At 450 meters, the second deck feels like standing above the atmosphere, the city below reduced to a circuit board of light. The base is modeled on the 5-story pagoda, a central pillar acting as a spine, the outer structure flexing around it during earthquakes. At night, the tower alternates between pale blue and purple illumination. Akihabara. Blocks of neon stacked 6 stories high, every surface a screen, every doorway opening onto racks of electronics, retro games, figurines, and components that exist nowhere else. The arcades here run 24 hours, 6 floors of crane machines, rhythm games, and racing simulators, each floor louder than the last. Maid cafes line the side streets, waitresses in frilled aprons calling customers master and drawing hearts in ketchup on omelets. Above the street level, the buildings are connected by walkways and signs and a density that makes the sky a narrow strip. On Sundays, the main street closes to traffic and cosplayers gather near the station. At night, Akihabara becomes the brightest district in a city that never dims, the signage so intense it casts colored shadows on the pavement. The district was once Tokyo's electronics wholesale hub. The gaming and anime culture grew from the surplus of parts, circuits, screens, components that filled these buildings in the post-war decades. It is a place where commerce and obsession merge into a single grid of light. Kamakura, a coastal city an hour south of Tokyo, enclosed by wooded hills and open to Sagami Bay. Its center holds the Great Buddha, a bronze Amida statue 13 meters tall, cast in the year 1252, seated in the open air since a tsunami washed away the hall that sheltered it in 1498. The statue is hollow. Visitors step inside through an opening in the back and stand within the bronze walls, looking up at the interior of a sculpture that has survived earthquakes, typhoons, and 500 years of salt wind. The face is serene, eyes half closed, hands resting in meditation. Outside, the courtyard is framed by cherry trees and hydrangeas that bloom in alternating seasons. A 10-minute walk through Hasedera Temple's hillside gardens leads to a viewing platform where the Buddha is visible from above, its head a bronze circle against the green of the surrounding trees, Sagami Bay glittering beyond. Nikko. Deep in the mountains of Tochigi Prefecture, where cedar trees 1,000 years old line the approach to Japan's most ornate shrine. Toshugu is the mausoleum of Tokugawa Ieyasu, the shogun who unified Japan in 1600. Every surface is carved, lacquered, or gilded. Dragons climbing pillars, elephants carved by an artist who had never seen one, a cat sleeping in a carving so lifelike that visitors lean in to check. The famous three wise monkeys, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, occupy a single panel on the stable building. Beyond the shrine, the path climbs through moss-covered stone torii into Cryptomeria forest, so dense the canopy blocks the sun. The air smells of cedar and wet stone. Lake Chuzenji sits at the top of the mountain pass, its water a deep volcanic blue, fed by Kegon Falls, plunging 97 meters from the cliffs above. It is a place where the ambition of a shogun and the patience of a forest meet in a single clearing of gold and green. Mount Fuji. 3,776 meters of perfectly symmetrical volcanic cone, the most iconic mountain in the world. Visible from Tokyo on a clear day, its snow-capped peak rises alone from the surrounding plains, a shape so balanced it looks designed rather than formed. The last eruption came in 1707, Hoei Fuji, an event that blanketed Edo in ash nearly 100 kilometers away, turning midday to darkness. The mountain is still classified as active. The crater at the summit spans 500 meters across, its rim walkable in roughly 90 minutes by those who reach the top. Fuji has been climbed as a spiritual act since ancient times. Princess Kono Hanasakuya, the deity of the mountain, was said to make the cherry blossoms bloom at her command. In the Edo period, pilgrimage associations called Fujiko organized group ascents for commoners who could not travel alone. They wore white robes, the color of death and purity, and climbed through the night to arrive at the summit before dawn, a practice that continues today. The climbing season runs 6 weeks from July through early September. 30,000 people attempt the summit in a single season. Each autumn, the first snowfall draws photographers to Lake Kawaguchiko, where the mountain inverts perfectly in still water, one Fuji above, one below. 5 lakes ring its northern base, each one a different shade of blue. In spring, cherry blossoms frame the lower slopes. The mountain has been painted, carved, and photographed more than any other on Earth. Hokusai alone devoted 36 woodblock prints to it, each one a different Fuji, seen from a different distance, in different weather, at a different hour. No image has ever captured why it stops people in their tracks. It is the ultimate proof that some landscapes do not need to be understood, only witnessed. Lake Kawaguchiko. The largest of the Fuji 5 lakes and the closest to the mountain, a body of water so still at dawn that Fuji's reflection appears painted on its surface. The lake changes color by the hour, steel gray at first light, pale blue by mid-morning, emerald in the afternoon. The North Shore holds onsen resorts where open-air baths face the mountain directly. In November, the surrounding maples turn crimson and gold, and the lake's edge becomes one of the most photographed autumn scenes in Japan. Hakone. A mountain resort town built inside a volcanic caldera, where sulfurous steam rises from fissures in the rock at Owakudani, and the air carries the smell of eggs boiled black in sulfur water. Lake Ashi sits at the center, a crater lake 2 kilometers across, formed over 3,000 years ago. On clear mornings, Fuji rises behind the far shore, its reflection stretching across the water between the outlines of 2 red torii gates belonging to Hakone Shrine. Sightseeing boats styled as pirate ships cross the lake at regular intervals, their wakes cutting through Fuji's reflected image and reassembling it behind them. The old Tokaido Road, the highway that connected Edo to Kyoto for centuries, runs through Hakone, and sections of the original stone pavement still exist between the cedars. It is a place where the earth still breathes, steam rising from its seams, the lake sitting in the crater of a mountain that has not finished forming. Shirakawa-go, a village in the mountains of Gifu Prefecture, where over 100 farmhouses stand with thatched roofs, shaped like hands pressed together in prayer, the Gassho-zukuri style, designed to shed heavy snow. The steep angle of the roofs, up to 60 degrees, prevents accumulation in winters where 3 meters of snow is normal. No nails hold these structures together. The timbers are lashed with rope and woven with straw, flexible enough to flex in earthquakes, tight enough to withstand a century of storms. The thatching of a single roof requires the labor of the entire village. The process, called yui, is a cooperative act that has no pay, only reciprocity. When your roof needs replacing, every neighbor comes. The reed is harvested from the surrounding marshes in winter, bundled and dried through spring, and laid in courses so thick they can reach a meter deep. A well-maintained gassho roof lasts 40 years. The ceremony of replacing one is celebrated with food and drink, the workers standing on scaffolding high above the village, passing bundles hand to hand from the ground to the ridge. The village sits in a river galley, rice paddies spreading at its feet, forested mountains rising on every side. In winter, the roofs are illuminated after dark, pools of warm light glowing from within the thatch while snow falls silently outside. From the Shiroyama viewpoint above the village, Shirakawa-go appears as a cluster of golden triangles in a bowl of white. The isolation that preserved these houses for 4 centuries was also what nearly killed them. By the 1970s, younger residents had left for the cities. A preservation movement saved the village. It is a place where survival depended not on isolation, but on the very thing that built every roof: neighbors. Kanazawa, a city that survived the Second World War without a single bombing raid, preserving its Edo-era streets, samurai districts, and geisha quarters intact. At its heart sits Kenroku-en, one of the 3 great gardens of Japan. The name means Garden of 6 qualities: spaciousness, seclusion, artifice, antiquity, waterways, and panoramas. Every element is placed with precision. The Kotoji Tori lantern at the edge of Kasumigaike Pond, its 2 legs of unequal length balanced on the stones. The oldest fountain in Japan, powered not by electricity, but the natural pressure of water flowing downhill from a higher basin. In winter, the pine branches are supported by conical rope structures called yukitsuri, ropes extending from the treetop to the ground, holding the branches up against the weight of snow. It is a garden where every season reveals a different argument between nature and design. The Tateyama-Kurobe Alpine Route. A 90-kilometer crossing of the northern Japan Alps by cable car, bus, ropeway, and foot, passing through elevations up to 2,400 meters. The route's most famous section is the Snow Wall Walk at Murodo, where the road is carved between walls of snow up to 20 meters high, cut each spring by bulldozers after winters where snowfall can exceed 7 meters. Visitors walk between the walls from April through June, the snow flanking them on both sides at twice their height. At the route's midpoint, the Kurobe Dam rises 186 meters, the tallest dam in Japan, its face a curved wall of concrete, discharging water in white columns during the summer melt. It is a crossing that demands a full day and rewards it with a landscape that belongs to a different altitude. Matsumoto Castle. A 6-story black and white keep rising from a moat that mirrors it perfectly. One of only 5 castles in Japan whose main tower survives from the feudal era. Built in the late 1500s, its exterior is wood plastered in black lacquer, the windows and gun ports arranged asymmetrically for defense. The interior tells a different story. Steep, hidden staircases, a moon-viewing pavilion added by a later lord who wanted a place to drink sake under the harvest moon, wooden floors worn smooth by 4 centuries of footsteps. The castle stands on flat land, a hira-jiro, with no mountain to retreat to, designed to hold its ground. In spring, cherry blossoms frame the black keep. In winter, the snow on its pitched roofs turns it into a woodblock print. Fushimi Inari. 10,000 vermilion torii gates ascending a mountainside in Kyoto, each one donated by a Japanese business, each one bearing the name of its benefactor in black ink on the underside. The trail climbs 4 kilometers through dense forest, the gates pressing close overhead, turning the path into a tunnel of burning orange. At the bends, gaps in the gates reveal the city below, a flash of gray rooftops between walls of vermilion. Inari is the deity of rice and prosperity, a god who began as a patron of agriculture and became the patron of commerce, which is why the gates bear the names of companies rather than individuals. The earliest donations date to the Heian period, over 1,000 years ago. The practice has never stopped. New gates are added each year, the most recent standing at the base, where the paint is still bright, the oldest near the summit, where the vermilion has faded to the color of dried clay. Fox statues guard the sub-shrines along the route, messengers of Inari, each one holding a key, a sheaf of rice, or a jewel in its mouth. Some wear red bibs left by worshippers. The foxes are not tame. In folklore, they are tricksters, shapeshifters, beings that can possess or protect depending on their mood. At dawn, before the crowds arrive, the silence inside the gate tunnel is absolute, broken only by footsteps on stone and the rustle of cedars overhead. The walk from base to summit and back takes 2 to 3 hours. Most visitors turn back at the first overlook, where the gates thin and Kyoto spreads below. Those who continue find fewer crowds, smaller sub-shrines, and a second set of gates descending the far side of the mountain. Built over centuries, still growing, the final gate at the summit looks down on 10,000 more. Kinkaku-ji, the Golden Pavilion. 3 stories covered entirely in gold leaf, sitting at the edge of a mirror pond in northern Kyoto, the most photographed building in Japan. The top 2 stories are wrapped in gold that catches light from every angle, reflecting off the water in a double image so symmetrical it is hard to tell where the building ends and its reflection begins. The roof is topped by a bronze phoenix, wings spread. Each of the 3 stories represents a different architectural style. The first floor in the Heian Palace style, its walls white plaster and sliding screens. The second in samurai residential style, with latticed windows. The third in Zen temple style, gilded and austere. The effect from the outside is unified, gold, but the building contains 3 Japans stacked vertically: courtier, warrior, monk. The original pavilion was built in 1397 as a retirement villa for Shogun Ashikaga Yoshimitsu. On the morning of July 2, 1950, a novice monk named Hayashi Hyoken set fire to it. He was 21. He said later that he was overwhelmed by its beauty, that its perfection made him feel the world was incomplete, and that destroying it would restore balance. The pavilion burned to the waterline. The phoenix on the roof fell into the pond. Hyoken was sentenced to life imprisonment and died in 1956. The building was rebuilt identically in 1955 and re-gilded in 1980 with gold leaf 5 times thicker than the original. The surrounding garden is designed so that the pavilion is visible from every point along the path, each angle revealing a different composition of gold, water, and pine. A stone in the pond near the far shore is shaped like the islands of Japan, a miniature archipelago at the feet of the Golden Building. It is a place where beauty and destruction have entered the same story, and the building stands now as both the original and its own echo. Arashima. A bamboo forest on the western outskirts of Kyoto, where tens of thousands of moso bamboo stalks rise vertically from the forest floor, reaching 20 meters before their first branch. The canes grow so close together that the path between them feels like walking through a living corridor, green overhead, green on every side, filtered light falling in narrow shafts. The sound inside the grove is unlike anywhere else. Wind passing through the bamboo produces a hollow, resonant clicking, a sound the Japanese government has designated as one of the country's 100 soundscapes worth preserving. The grove opens onto the Togaseku Bridge spanning the Katsura River, with forested mountains rising on the far bank. In winter, the bamboo greens against gray sky. In autumn, the maples at the grove's edge turn scarlet. It is a place where sound becomes the primary sense, the clicking of 10,000 stalks overhead, a rhythm that needs no composer. Kiyomizu-dera. A wooden temple perched on a hillside in eastern Kyoto, its main hall supported by a stage built out over the slope on 13-meter stilts, not a single nail used in the entire structure. The stage faces a wall of maple and cherry trees, dropping away to the city below. On autumn evenings, the trees are illuminated from below, their red and orange leaves glowing against the dark wooden frame like stained glass in a cathedral. The temple's name means pure water, taken from the Ottawa Falls at its base, where 3 streams flow into a stone basin. Visitors drink from each stream with long-handled cups, one for longevity, one for success, one for love. Below the temple, the streets of Higashiyama wind past pottery shops and tea houses, unchanged since the Edo period. Gyoen. Kyoto's most famous geisha district, 5 blocks of machiya townhouses lining narrow streets where wooden lattice screens filter the light from within. In the early evening, the streets glow amber from paper lanterns and illuminated screens. Geiko, Kyoto's term for geisha, and maiko, their apprentices, move between tea houses in full regalia, white painted faces, elaborate kimonos, wooden geta clicking on cobblestones. The Hanamikoji Street is the main avenue, lined with restaurants whose entrances are marked by norin curtains and small stone lanterns. At the district's southern end, the Shirakawa Canal runs beneath willow trees, its surface reflecting the warm light of the establishments along its banks. Gyoen is not a museum, it is a working district where the tradition of Geiko entertainment has continued without interruption for over 300 years. The Philosopher's Path. A 2-kilometer stone walkway following a narrow canal through Kyoto's Higashiyama district, lined on both sides with hundreds of cherry trees. Named after Nishida Kitaro, a philosopher who used the path for daily meditation. In late March and early April, the cherry blossoms arch over the canal in a canopy of white and pale pink, petals falling into the running water and drifting downstream in slow pink currents. Cafes and pottery shops occupy the old machiya along the route. The path is quiet even in peak blossom season, the canal absorbing sound into the gentle rush of water over stone. Ryoan-ji. A temple in western Kyoto containing Japan's most famous rock garden, 15 stones arranged on a rectangle of raked white gravel surrounded by a low clay wall stained by centuries of oil smoke. No matter where you sit, you can never see all 15 stones at once. At least one is always hidden behind another. The garden contains no water, no trees, no color, only stone and gravel and moss at the base of the rocks. The designer is unknown. The meaning is unknown. 15 stones in white gravel, a rectangle of absolute restraint in a city of abundance. Byodoin. A temple in the town of Fuji between Kyoto and Nara, its phoenix hall reflected in a still pond so perfectly that the building and its mirror image form a complete shape. Built in 1053 by a nobleman seeking to recreate the Buddhist paradise on earth. The hall is crowned by 2 bronze phoenixes on the roof ridge. The interior holds a single-seated Amida Buddha, carved by Jocho, surrounded by 52 wooden bodhisattvas suspended on clouds, each playing a musical instrument or holding a lotus. Byodoin appears on the Japanese 10-yen coin. The reflection in the pond, the building doubled, the phoenixes doubled, is the image that most visitors carry away. Todai-ji. The world's largest wooden building, housing the world's largest bronze Buddha, 15 meters tall, weighing 500 tons, the thumb alone the size of a grown man. The Great Buddha Hall measures 57 meters wide and 50 meters deep, its scale almost impossible to comprehend from the inside. The ceiling vanishes overhead, the Buddha's face gazes down from a height that makes every visitor small. Emperor Shomo ordered the construction in 743 at a time when Japan had been ravaged by smallpox, famine, and rebellion. His vow to build the Buddha was an act of national desperation. He believed that the power of the statue could protect the country from further disaster. The casting took years. The bronze required the donation of metal from across the entire country. Temple bells, weapons, cooking vessels, all melted and recast. The ceremony of consecrating the eyes of the Buddha, painting the pupils for the first time, was attended by 10,000 people in 752. A wooden pillar at the base of the hall has a hole carved through it, the same size as the Buddha's nostril, and children who squeeze through are said to gain enlightenment in their next life. The line forms early. The Nandaimon, the Great Southern Gate, stands 50 meters from the hall. Its 2 guardian figures, Neo, each 8 meters tall, carved from single blocks of cypress, their muscles and expressions so fierce that visitors instinctively slow as they pass between them. Outside, over 1,000 Sika deer roam the park freely, considered messengers of the gods since the temple's founding. Vendors sell deer crackers, and the animals bow before accepting them, a behavior learned over generations, not instinct, passed from deer to deer in a tradition that has no human teacher. It is a place where the ambition of an empire and the patience of a forest exist in the same clearing, the Buddha inside, the deer outside, both watching the same centuries pass. Gassho-Taisha. Nara's great Shinto shrine, founded in 768, approached through a forest path lined with over 3,000 stone lanterns. Each donated by a worshipper over the centuries, each coated in bright green moss. The shrine itself is a repeated structure of vermilion pillars, white walls, and cypress bark roofs. The same design rebuilt every 20 years for over a millennium. Inside the main hall, 1,000 bronze lanterns hang from the ceiling, lit only twice a year during the Montoro festivals. When the stone lanterns along the path are also lit, turning the entire approach into a corridor of fire. Dotonbori. A canal running through the heart of Osaka's entertainment district, its banks lined with restaurants whose signs are not merely advertisements, but sculptures. A 60-foot crab with moving claws, a giant octopus writhing above a takoyaki stand, a rotating wheel of gyoza. The Glico Running Man sign, a blue and red athlete sprinting against a yellow backdrop, has been a landmark since 1935. The canal is crossed by several bridges, and from each one the view is a wall of light and motion, signs reflected in the dark water, duplicated in rippling fragments. Osaka calls itself Japan's Kijin, and Dotonbori is the proof. Every 10 meters, another stall selling food, grilled scallops, skewered quail eggs, okonomiyaki sizzling on iron plates, the smoke rising into the neon. It is a place where the appetite for food, for light, for spectacle is the entire point. Osaka Castle. 8 stories of white walls and green tiles rising from a stone base, a reconstruction of the castle Toyotomi Hideyoshi built in 1583 as the symbol of his ambition to unify Japan. The current structure dates from 1931, built with a concrete core faced in traditional materials. The interior is a museum. It is the exterior that matters, the golden shachihoko, tiger-headed carp perched on the roof ridges, their gilded surfaces catching the sun. The moat is vast, stone walls rising sheer from the water, each stone fitted without mortar, the largest blocks estimated at over 100 tons. Meiji Castle. The White Heron, so named for its brilliant white plaster walls and the way its multiple roofs suggest a bird about to take flight. The finest surviving castle in Japan and the most visited. Unlike the reconstructions at Osaka and elsewhere, Himeji is original. Its main keep dates from 1609 and has never been burned, bombed, or destroyed. The castle survived the feudal wars, the Meiji Restoration's order to demolish all castles. It was sold at auction for 23 yen, a price no buyer would pay, and the American bombing of Himeji City in 1945, when firebombs fell around it but failed to ignite its white walls. The approach to the main tower is a maze, walls and gates arranged so that any attacking force would be forced to spiral upward in tight turns, exposed to arrow fire from above, stone dropping chutes hidden in the walls, and dead ends that led nowhere. The route that takes a visitor 15 minutes to walk would have taken an army hours, each turn narrowing, each gate smaller than the last, the attackers compressed into tighter formations as they climbed toward a keep they could never reach. The white walls gleam against the sky, and from a distance the castle appears to hover above the city. In spring, 1,000 cherry trees bloom along the moats. The reflection of the white heron in still water, framed by pale blossoms, is one of the definitive images of Japan. A recent 6-year restoration, completed in 2015, stripped the plaster from every wall and reapplied it using the original technique, white lime mixed with crushed oyster shell, a recipe that produces a surface that glows in overcast light and blazes in direct sun. It is a building that refused every attempt to destroy it, standing now as the last great castle in a country that lost nearly all the rest. Hiroshima. The atomic bomb dome, a building left exactly as it was on the morning of August 6, 1945, its steel dome frame exposed to the sky, its brick walls shattered but standing. It sat almost directly beneath the hypocenter, and by some alignment of physics and architecture, the vertical force of the blast left the skeleton upright while everything around it was leveled. The building was the Hiroshima Prefectural Industrial Promotion Hall. A man was working at his desk on the top floor when the bomb fell. His desk was found. He was not. The bomb detonated at 8:15 in the morning, 600 meters above the city. The temperature at the hypocenter reached 4,000 degrees Celsius. Within a radius of 2 kilometers, every wooden structure was consumed. By the end of the day, 70,000 people were dead. By the end of the year, the number had reached 140,000. Today, the dome stands at the north end of the Peace Memorial Park, a long green strip stretching south to the river, designed by architect Kenzo Tange in 1954. Miyajima. The floating torii gate of Itsukushima Shrine, 6 posts of vermilion camphor wood standing in the shallows of the Seto Inland Sea, appearing to float at high tide when the water covers the stone base and reaches the crossbeam. The gate stands 200 meters offshore. At low tide, visitors walk across the sand to its base, touching the barnacled wood and looking back at the shrine, itself built over the water, connected by covered walkways that flood with the tide. The island has been considered sacred since ancient times, so sacred that for centuries no one was permitted to be born or to die on it. Pregnant women and the terminally ill were removed to the mainland. The soil was not to be disturbed, no burials, no plowing. The shrine was first built in 593, rebuilt in its current form by Taira no Kiyomori in 1168. The torii gate has been replaced 8 times. The current gate dates to 1875, its main pillars made from single camphor trees between 500 and 600 years old, their bases buried directly into the seabed without a foundation. Gravity and tidal friction hold them in place. Deer roam the island freely, sleeping in the shade of the gateposts at low water. Behind the shrine, Mount Misen rises through dense forest, accessible by a ropeway that lifts above the canopy. Fukuoka. The yatai, open-air food stalls that appear along the riverside and main streets of the city each evening, their canvas canopies and red lanterns transforming ordinary sidewalks into temporary restaurants. Fukuoka has more yatai than any other city in Japan, over 150, each one seating perhaps 8 to 10 people shoulder to shoulder, the cook working in a space the size of a closet. The signature dish is tonkotsu ramen, pork bone broth simmered for hours until it becomes milky white, served with thin noodles, chashu pork, and a sheet of nori. The stalls open at 6 and close at 2 in the morning. On summer nights, the Nakagawa riverbank glows with their lights, the smell of grilling meat and garlic drifting across the water, the sound of conversation echoing off the concrete. It is a city that eats its way through the dark. Nagasaki. A city built into steep hills surrounding one of Japan's finest natural harbors, the port through which for 200 years all foreign influence entered a closed country. Glover Garden sits on a hillside above the harbor, a collection of 19th century Western mansions relocated from across the city, their wooden verandas and stone foundations offering views over the water where ships once carried silk, spices, and the first firearms. The Ora Cathedral, Japan's oldest Christian church, stands at the garden's base, its white Gothic spire and stained glass incongruous against the surrounding Japanese rooftops. At night, the harbor reflects the lights of the shipyards on the far shore, and the hills glow with the amber windows of houses stacked up the slopes like steps. It is a city where Japan and the outside world learned each other's shape. 6,852 islands. One country, one journey. The land does not explain itself, it only reveals one horizon at a time. Japan does not ask you to remember it, it asks you to return, and you will. If this journey moved you, subscribe and join us for the next one, because every corner of this earth hides a wonder, and we will find them together.